What is up, guys? It is Barry Michael Doyle here, and welcome to another React and TypeScript tutorial. In this video, we are going to look at React hooks, and specifically we're going to look at useState, and I'm going to show you how that works and how we can also use TypeScript with it in our React application that we got started with. Anyway, let's head back over to our project that I made in the last few videos. Alright, so over here I've got our project. Sorry, it looks like a bit of a mess at the moment, and I've got this Chrome tab open here just to show you our project. So we're going to run it by going npm run start, and that will do its thing. While that does its thing, I'm going to move this down, and you can see here I guess I don't need this folder anymore. Get rid of that, and I'm not using components yet either. We don't need to see this. I'm going to focus purely on the app folder that we have. So let's close this. What is this complaining about? Groups must be alphabetized. So you make a space there. It's no longer alphabetized because it's in its own little group. This is a group, this is a group, and this is a group. Right, so previously I put in this hello world and Barry thing over here. Let me get rid of that and make a space. If I save that, these will go away. And this is going to be my little workspace area. Maybe I'll get rid of the learn React text and edit text as well, and we'll just keep the spinning logo there. So if I save that, it auto formats and it works nicely like that. Next thing I want to do is, in order to demonstrate how useState is going to work, I'm going to create an input field. So this is just a general input. If I create it there we go. We've got an input. This works. This input field over here can take a value. So let's make that value Barry, because that's my name. Now you see I've started it, the value is Barry. I can't change it. I'm trying to type and it's not working. I can't change it because the value is set now. If we made this default value Barry, then it can be changed, and it just means its initial value is Barry. But the fact that we want to keep it just value is quite important. For now, I'll leave it as default value. This can also take an onChange value, which will be a function. So this function can console log something changed. I saved it auto formatted nicely for me. And now I want to inspect this element, go to console. Maybe I should make this go doc at the bottom. Cool, get rid of that. So now if I type in here, every time I type, it increments that value, something changed. As I type, it says something changed. Now, how do we know what changed? Well, in order to do that, we can say, add a comma here, and you can type in a variable here. This will just be something else like other. That's a nice way for console logs. So if I typed in here, it says something changed, and then this comma is basically a space. So what this can take here is a value. I actually think this takes event.target.value. So if we said value, I might be wrong here. Yeah, you see this gives you an event. So this is actually, if I fix that, it should be event. So we have something changed, it's an event. That's what happens. So we're getting this event. Now, in order to get the value of the changed value here from this event, we can say event.target.value. Right. So if I save that, now if I type in here, when it says something changed, it actually says the value of what has changed. If we want to destructure this using a nice JSX way, we can say target, and inside that we destructure value from target, and then you can just say value over there. It's up to you, personal preference. I kind of like the event one for this one, because then I can just say event, and down here it's event.target.value, but this should work too, as you can see. So yeah, I like destructuring when it makes sense, when you're solving reusable issues, but here we're not, so I'm just going to say event.target.value. That's all good, because that does end up being shorter, so that's nice. And we can type that, and you see if we make this value over here, then if I type, nothing happens, but as I type, if I type J, as I type stuff tries to change. If I do backspace, that's the next value that wants to be set. So what we essentially need here is we need a state for this value, and we need a change event for this value. And what you traditionally do in React apps is you get a state, and you can change the value by saying something like, you do this dot set state, set state, and in there you'll put the value is going to equal event.target.value. Now, we are using a functional component here, not a stateful component. So we can't use this .set state. So what recently came out a few months ago was the React team had released hooks. They're called React hooks. So that's something called useState. So you can get useState from React. So if you could also say react.useState to use it, but I'll show you how to use that now. Let's undo this and take it back to just the console.log event.target.value. We'll just change the value. So now I've got our unused variable here, we've got our value here, and yeah, that's just complaining that I haven't used useState yet. So in order to use state, we're going to have to separate this. We're going to make this function not just return stuff, but also do stuff inside it. So here we've got our return statement. We've returned, this is what gets rendered. We return what gets rendered. And over here, we're going to set, let's just make this input actually for names. So we're going to say name, that's what we're going to call the value. And we're going to say set value. So we destructure this from two arrays, which is going to come from something called useState. So now we can have the name as the value, and we can have the set value, which is the function that sets it. So if I set this value to name, and I set this value to say, if we say event, the onChange method is a function that has an event parameter as input, it's going to set the value and it's going to give us the value there. What should theoretically happen, that might not work because of something, I know why, but I type in here and it actually works. So what's happening here, it's complaining that it's changing an uncontrolled input type. So we've got a value there and we've got an onChange. I don't know why it's complaining. It shouldn't be complaining, but I'll figure that out just now. But it's working now. We have our value. I mean, if we want, what you can do is you can set a default value here. So we can default set this to Barry. So let's save that. And by default, the value is Barry, and the set value is going to happen here. So set value takes in the input parameter of what's going to change. This is set value, and we have event.target.value, which makes sense because we get that there. So we have our value and we have our onChange, and that's how this works. So I can type here and it will change. If I, to show that it's not a, see that controlled problem went away now. I think it's because I didn't set a default here. Usually you should set the default to an empty string just so that you know that it's a string. But I'll show you why now. But we'll set that to Barry for now. But here we can console log name to show that this name is actually changing. And what happens with these components is every time something changes, a state value changes or a prop changes. We're not using props at the moment. But every time a state value changes, this function reruns. It re-renders, re-returns new values. So that's how React is working and how it's special. So yeah, it loaded. The first time it ran, it logged the name. Next time I log the name, it does something, it does something, it does something, it does something. So as I type, it does stuff. As I untype, it does stuff. So this name value is always in sync. So if we wanted to say paragraph name in here, then everything we type in, I'm going to lose this. Everything we type in, we've got the name there. And as we change it here, everything's in sync. Because remember, this whole thing re-renders every time that the state value changes. So every time name changes via set value, which is done over here, it gets updated, which is awesome. Now finally, how does this work with TypeScript? Well, if I didn't have this here, let me see if that problem still happens. Yeah, it complains a little bit. It still works, but it does complain that like, hey, originally the value was undefined. Because this technically, when you don't set a value in here, originally this was undefined, and now you're setting the value to equal this name. So that's why this error happens. So that's why it's better to use an empty string. Because if I save now and type in here, we don't get that problem anymore. What's even better is, remember we can set, this is a type here, like, and you can set const name string, not like that, sorry, string equals Barry. Spelled my name wrong, but you can do that, and it's complaining my name. There we go. We can say my name equals Barry, and we know it's a string. This works fine. If we set this to a number, it complains because it's like, hey, I expected this to be a string, not a number. So a nice thing with state is we can say that this is expected to be a string, not like that. Sorry, I've messed it up. Let me go back. useState string. If I could type properly. So that works nicely there now. See, now if you set this to undefined, this should theoretically complain, but it doesn't. But if we set this default value to a number, then it's like, hey, this was supposed to be a string, not a number. So you've got to set it to an empty value, which is awesome. This is how that works. So you could set this to be a Boolean or a number. You can even make an interface out of it if you wanted to and set this to be an object. And you can set the values in here. You can make the set value actually change. Another thing that I like to do with all of this is put this into a function, handle change, because this will clean up our event method. So this function here, I want to put this whole function into this function up here. So this will still take the event, and we can say this will set value. This will be what sets the value. It's event.target.value. And it's set, well, for now we set this to any. It needs to be something, and we'll change that later. And then over here we can say just handle change. We can put the function in like that. I think it looks a lot cleaner, and apparently it caches functions better if you do it this way. So let's just make sure everything works. Test. Everything does work as we expect it to, which is great. This event here could be a actual HTML input element dot change. Wait, is it? This is a change event. How do I show that? Change event. You get a change event from React. If we just fix this. Change event, and you gotta say HTML, HTML input element. So an input element, if you say change event with the type of input elements in here, then it knows that it will have a target value. So if you want to give this event a type, you import change event from React and you put an HTML input element. This HTML input element is built in. So that's pretty much it on this. This is how the state stuff works. It's really great. So to recap, you've got your value, your variable name, and you've got the name of the function that will change the variable name. And that name, it starts off to be whatever value you put in here. Here we set the type for that name. So this is the default value. It's basically the same as saying constant name equals this, but then you're also setting the function here by using this useState thing. We're saying set value, and that will change it to be whatever we want. So finally, we've got this function handle change. This handle change goes into this on change. So technically this function runs every time that this change event is fired. We run this function, and we're setting the value here. It all pretty much makes sense. If you guys do have any questions, let me know in the comments and I'll try to answer them there. Otherwise, yeah, I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope you've learned a lot, and I hope this is useful in your coding apps. Please leave a like and subscribe if you haven't done that already, and I will catch you guys in the next video. Cheers.